medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
And now to the rest of our service, we begin with Africa. Kenyan MBPS have voted overwhelmingly in favor of removing the country's deputy president over accusations of corruption. Lawmakers also accused Gachagua of practicing ethnically divisive politics and undermining the government. Gachagua denies any wrongdoing in role that follows his recent fallouts with President William Ruto. On Tuesday evening, Speaker Moses Wetangula announced that 281 MPs had adopted an 11-charge impeachment motion with 44 MBPS voting against and 1 abstaining. It means Gachagua has become the first Kenyan deputy president to be impeached by the National Assembly. The country's Senate will decide if he gets ousted. He is accused of acquiring properties through corrupt means. The vice president, who is a wealthy businessman, said most of the houses and land belonged to his late brother's estate. However, many Kenyan MPPs took to the parliamentary floor on Tuesday to tarnish his reputation and to show they were on President Ruto's side in this role at the top of government. The political drama has taken the focus of demands of the largely disgruntled Kenyan public as they struggle to cope with the high cost of living. The 59-year-old politician, popularly known as Riggy G, has described allegations against him as outrageous and sheer propaganda. Political tensions have been running high in the East African country since June, when deadly demonstrations erupted over unpopular tax hikes, exposing a deep rift between Ruto and Gachagua. Ruto sacked most of his cabinet and brought in members of the main opposition following the anti-tax protests, in which more than 50 people were killed. Several MBPs allied to Gachagua were summoned by police last month, accused of funding the protest, though no charges were brought. Ahead of the vote, security was heightened in the capital, Nairobi, with police patrols and major roads leading to Parliament blocked to the public. Mozambicans started voting on Wednesday in a tense general election highly likely to deliver victory for the ruling party Frelimo, which has governed the Southern African nation since 1975. ATN gathered that poverty is the major concern of Mozambique's 35 million people, half of whom are registered to vote, along with an Islamist insurgency in the north that has forced thousands to flee their homes and halted multi-billion-dollar gas projects. ATN also learned that counting will start after the polls close at 6 p.m., but officials' results can take up to 2 weeks. The favorite among 4 candidates vying to replace President Filipe Nyusi as he steps down after serving 2 terms is Daniel Chapo, 47 years old, a lawyer viewed as a safe choice for businesses and a fresh face for the long-ruling party. He faces off against Venancio Mondlane, a charismatic independence candidate who draws huge crowds, former rebel commander Osufo Momade, and a small opposition party leader Lutero Simango. Dozens of posters with Chapo's likeness lined Maputo's seaside, promenade under palm trees and red Frelimo flags flew over trees flanked by high rises beside Portuguese colonial buildings, but no opposition poster was in sight. Frelimo first allowed elections in 1994 and has since been accused of rigging them, charges it denies. A rebel force turned opposition party, Renamo, usually comes a distant second place. Cameroon's 91-year-old president, Paul Biya, is in good health. The government said on Tuesday, in a statement calling widespread reports saying otherwise. Pure fantasy. Biya has not been seen in public since attending the China-Africa Forum in Beijing in early September. His failure to appear as scheduled at a summit in France last weekend stoked speculations that the non-Guinean was unwell. Rumors of all kinds have been circulating through the conventional media and social networks about the president's condition, government spokesperson Reni Sadi said in a statement. The government unequivocally states that these rumors are pure fantasy and hereby issues a formal denial. Opposition parties and civil society groups have been calling for an update on the status of Biya's health and his exact whereabouts. After Beijing, Biya paid a private visit to Europe, Sadi said. The head of state is in good health and will be returning to Cameroon in the coming days. With no clear succession plan, Biya's death would bring more political turmoil to West and Central Africa, which has seen 8 coups since 2020 and several other military attempts to overthrow governments. His recent absence from the meeting of leaders from French-speaking countries in Paris was much remarked on as a 2-day event, according to 3 non-Cameroonian African ministers who were attended. United States on Tuesday imposed sanctions on the younger brother of the head of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, accusing him of leading the paramilitary group's procurement of weapons and extending the country's civil war. Fighting that broke out between the RSF and Sudan's army in April 2023 has displaced millions and led to the spread of famine and disease among Sudan's people. Algonei Hamdan Daglo Musa, hit with the latest U.S. Treasury Department sanctions on Sudanese actors, is the younger brother of RSF Commander Mohammed Hamdagon Dagalo, known as Hemedti. Washington has so far resisted calls to sanction Hemedti directly over allegations that the RSF has committed human rights violations, including in the Darfur region. The Treasury said in a statement that Algonei's actions supplying the RSF had contributed to the ongoing siege and humanitarian crisis in Al-Fashir in North Darfur. U.S.-mediated talks in Geneva in September failed to achieve progress towards a ceasefire, but did secure promises from the warring parties to improve aid access. Algonei was part of the RSF delegation to the talks. The U.S. last year targeted another of Hemedti's brothers, RSF military figure Abdurrahim Dagalo, with sanctions. The Treasury said Algonei is close to Hemedti, having worked as his personal secretary and has controlled front companies used for RSF procurement. Those include Tradiv General Trading, a company already sanctioned by Washington that is based in the United Arab Emirates. Hurricane Milton barreled toward Florida's battered Gulf Coast as an enormous Category 5 storm on Tuesday, triggering massive traffic jams and fuel shortages as officials ordered more than 1 million people to flee before it slams into the Tampa Bay area. Milton, which exploded on Monday into one of the most intense Atlantic hurricanes on record, was forecast to make landfall late Wednesday or early Thursday, threatening a stretch of Florida's densely populated west coast that is still reeling from the devastating Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. A direct hit on the bay would be the first since 1921, when the now sprawling Tampa Street, St. Petersburg, Clearwater area was a relative backwater. Today, it is home to more than 3 million people. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor warned people against riding out the storm, calling Helene a mere wake-up call. If you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die, Castor said. Milton packed maximum sustained winds of 165 mph, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said, putting it at the highest level on the 5-step Saffir-Simpson scale. At 7 p.m. CDT, the eye of the storm was 440 miles southwest of Tampa, moving east-northwest at 10 mbph. Hurricane Helene left the Tampa Bay area more vulnerable when it hits the Gulf Coast barrier, islands and beaches on September 26, sweeping away tons of sand, knocking down dunes and blowing away dune grass, said Isaac Longley, a meteorologist with the commercial forecasting company AccuWeather. 5,000 National Guard members have been deployed, with another 3,000 on hand for the storm's aftermath, Governor Ron DeSantis said. U.S. Supreme Court signaled its willingness to uphold a major gun control policy implemented by the Biden administration that regulates so-called ghost guns in the same way as other firearms. The rule being challenged requires that ghost guns, largely untraceable firearms that can be assembled at home using kits, are subject to the same regulations as commercially made firearms. Under that rule, ghost gun manufacturers are required to include serial numbers on the kits and perform background checks on the purchasers. In this case of its term, the U.S. top court considered whether this rule had been applied fairly to ghost guns in a challenge brought by gun rights groups. All three of the court's liberal justices, as well as several of the 6-member conservative majority, sounded skeptical of the challenge. At issue was WADA, a 1968 law that requires gun manufacturers and dealers to run background checks, keep sales records and include serial numbers in firearms, should be applied to ghost guns. Addressing the court on Tuesday on behalf of the Biden administration, Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar argued that ghost guns were marketed as ridiculously easy to assemble. This new session comes off the back of a blockbuster previous term, one which saw the courts face continued widespread distress among the American public. Some 43% of Americans approve of the court and its work, according to Gallup, a near record low. Actress Jenna Fisher has revealed she has been receiving treatment for breast cancer since December last year. Best known for her role as receptionist Pam Besley in the U.S. version of The Office, Jenna said she was now cancer-free after surgery and multiple rounds of chemotherapy and radiation treatment. Jenna, who also hosts the Office Ladies podcast, played Pam in mockumentary series between 2005 and 2013 alongside Steve Carell, who plays regional manager Michael Scott. The much-memed series, based on a series of the same name written by Anne, starring Ricky Gervais, is one of the most-watched shows on Netflix and repeatedly ranks among the most popular U.S. sitcoms. Jenna said her cancer was found after a routine scan in October 2023, which said she would be putting off. She said that luckily her cancer was caught early, but the tumor was aggressively, so needed multiple rounds of treatment. There are a number of types of breast cancer, in some, like triple positive or known as hormone receptor positive cancers. More than 50,000 people in the UK are diagnosed with it each year, and figures from cancer research suggest 1 in every 7 women in the country will be diagnosed in their lifetime. Afghan man who was arrested in Oklahoma for allegedly plotting an election day terrorist attack, the U.S. Department of Justice said on Tuesday. The man, Nasir Ahmed Tawidi, 27 years old, living in Oklahoma City after entering the U.S. in 2021 on a special immigrant visa, was plotting the attack in the name of Islamic State, according to the indictment. The special immigrant visa program, which admits up to 50 people a year, is available to people who worked with the U.S. Armed Forces or under Chief of Mission Authority as a translator or interpreter in Iraq or Afghanistan. The indictment did not indicate whether Tawidi worked as translator or interpreter in Afghanistan. The Department of Justice did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Tawidi and an underage co-conspirator, who is his brother-in-law, were arrested on Monday after they met with FBI assets to buy 2 AK-47 rifles and ammunition. In his post-arrest interview, Tawhidi said their attack planned to target large gatherings of people, during which he and his co-conspirator expected to die as martyrs. We will continue to combat the ongoing threats that ISIS and its supporters pose to America's national security, and we will identify, investigate, and prosecute the individuals who seek to terrorize the American people, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said in a statement. Last week, in a Homeland Threat Assessment, the Department of Homeland Security said the U.S. threat environment was expected to remain high in the coming year due to factors including the 2024 election cycle and the war in Gaza. The Islamic State militant organization killed and executed thousands of people in the name of its extreme religious interpretation before it was territorially defeated in Iraq in 2017 and Syria in 2019. Haiti's armed gangs are increasingly recruiting children into their ranks. A report by Human Rights Watch warned on Wednesday as near-famine conditions push boys to pick up guns while girls are sexually abused and forced into domestic work. ATL learned in a report that the group, which advocates for human rights globally, said it had spoken to 6 children recently involved with gangs, all of whom said they wanted to leave and had joined because they were hungry, and gangs were often the only source of food, shelter, and money. Boys are often used as informants, trained to use weapons and ammunition, and deployed in clashes against the police. Human Rights Watch said girls are raped and forced to cook and clean for gang members. The report also said, and often discarded once they become pregnant. Haiti's powerful gangs have been expanding their influence in recent years, while state institutions have been paralyzed by a lack of funds and political crisis. Gangs now control territories where 2.7 million people live, including 500,000 children. As they have grown, the gangs have ramped up child recruitment, according to Human Rights Watch. The UN approved Haiti's request for a security mission to help the Caribbean country's police fight the gangs a year ago, but so far the mission has only partially deployed. Human Rights Watch urged Haiti's government and other countries to provide more resources for security forces, ensure children are able to eat and go to school, and provide rehabilitation for recruits. Brazilian nun, who has helped refugees and migrants for 40 years, on Wednesday won the Nansen Prize awarded every year by the UN High Commission for Refugees for outstanding work to protect internally displaced and stateless people. Sister Rosita Milesi, 79 years old, is a member of the Catholic Order of the Scalabrini Nuns, who are renowned for their service to refugees worldwide. Her parents were poor farmers from an Italian background in southern Brazil, and she became a nun at 19. As a lawyer, social worker, and activist, Milesi championed the rights and dignity of refugees and migrants of different nationalities in Brazil for 4 decades. The UNHCR Nansen Refugee Award was established in 1954 in honor of Norwegian humanitarian, scientist, explorer, and diplomatic Fridtjof Nansen. UNHCR announced the award in Geneva. Milesi joins a long list of distinguished global laureates, including former U.S. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, the first person to receive the award when it was set up in 1954. The charity Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, and Germany's former Chancellor Angela Merkel. Her work has had a significant impact on Brazil's legal landscape, including the shaping of its 1997 refugee law and the 2017 migration law, which enshrined critical protections for displaced people and reduced the risks of statelessness, UNHCR said in a statement. Colombia's National Electoral Council on Tuesday requested an investigation into the 2022 election campaign of President Gustavo Petro over alleged violation of financing limits, it said in a statement. The majority of the 9 magistrates voted to approve an investigation into Petro and his campaign manager, Ricardo Roa, who is currently the chief executive of Colombia's majority state-owned energy company, Ecopetrol. The decision to investigate comes weeks after Petro, Colombia's first leftist president, warned of an alleged plot to assassinate him or remove him from power through the courts. If the investigation goes ahead, Petro's case would be heard by the Accusation Committee of the lower house of Congress, where presidents must be tried according to the Constitution. Petro's coalition has a majority on that committee, and he has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. Roa's case would be investigated by the Attorney General's office. Inquiries found that spending during Petro's campaign exceeded the legal financing limit by a total of 5.3 billion pesos. 3 other campaign officials, as well as Petro's Human Colombia movement and the Patriotic Union Party, are also named by the CNE in the investigation, the statements said. Petro and his lawyers have argued that the CNE is seeking to violate his presidential privilege, a charge denied by the Electoral Authority, which has said it is not questioning presidential privilege. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Still ahead, North Korea vows to block border with South Korea. We will be back after this break. Stay with us.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching the broadcast of the International News and Atlantic Television Network. We are open for adverts, placements, bookings and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. And on to the rest of our stories. Melinda French Gates will grant $250 million to support women's health around the world through an open call for non-profits to apply for funding. The pledge announced on Wednesday signals a new chapter in our individual philanthropic giving since departing from the bill. And Melinda Gates Foundation earlier this year, and it's part of a 2-year, $1 billion commitment that French Gates made in May to support women and families around the world. Haven Lay, Chief Strategy Officer at French Gates organization Pivotal Ventures, said the grants competition was a curtain raiser to a likely new focus on funding women's health globally. Previously, Pivotal had primarily funded organizations working to advance women's power in the U.S. Lever for Change, a non-profit affiliate of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, is running the grants competition called Action for Women's Health. It has previously worked with both French Gates and billionaire author and philanthropist Mackenzie Scott to award $40 million in 2019 to support nonprofits building women's power in the U.S. Scott then also gave away $640 million to community-based nonprofits in March through a similar open call. This new open call will give at least 100 nonprofit organizations around the world between $1 million and $5 million in unrestricted funding. It will prioritize giving to organizations for whom that amount will make a big difference, though there is no restriction on the size of the organizations who are eligible to apply. The deadline for nonprofits to register for the open call is December 3rd, and the application deadline, review process, and final decision will stretch to the end of 2025. The lengthy process includes a peer review by other applicants and an outside review by a panel of experts. Most of philanthropy remains invitation-only decision-making behind closed doors, said Cecilia Conrad, CEO of Lever for Change. And what we have developed is a way to do an open call, a way to broaden access to philanthropic opportunities that is also a process that is humane and equitable, she said. Their initial model focused on scaling a solution with a minimum commitment from donors of $10 million over 5 years. But now they are also supporting donors who are interested in scaling a field. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te is escalating tensions with sinister intention. China's government said ahead of a keynote speech Lai will give in Taipei that could set off a Chinese military response. Lai, who took office in May after winning election in January, is detested by China, which calls him a separatist. Beijing claims democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory, a view Lai and his government reject. Responding late on Tuesday to comments Lai gave at the weekend on how it is impossible for the People's Republic of China to become Taiwan's motherland because Taiwan has older political roots. China's Taiwan Affairs Office said he was confusing right from wrong. Lai continues to peddle a theory that the two sides of the Taiwan Strait are two separate countries, it said in a statement. Lai will give his main National Day speech on Thursday, which marks the overthrow of the last Chinese dynasty in 1911 and the ushering in of the Republic of China. The defeated Republican government fled to Taiwan in 1949 after losing a civil war with Mao Zedong's communists. The Republic of China remains Taiwan's formal name. Taiwan's China Policymaking Mainland Affairs Council said it was an objective fact that since 1949, the People's Republic of China had never ruled the island. Taiwan's Defense Ministry told newsmen in a statement that China has been using various reasons to legitimize its targeted military drills. North Korea said on Wednesday that it will permanently block its border with South Korea and build frontline defense structures to cope with confrontational hysteria by South Korean and U.S. forces, while not announcing an expected constitutional revision to formally designate South Korea its principal enemy and codify new national borders. While the moves were likely a pressure tactic, it's unclear how they will affect ties with South Korea, since cross-border travel and exchanges have been halted for years. North Korea's military said it will completely cut off roads and railways linked to South Korea and fortify the relevant areas of foresight with strong defense structures, according to the North's official Korean Central News Agency. The North's military called its steps a self-defensive measure for inhibiting war and defending the security of North Korea. It said that the hostile forces are getting over more reckless in their confrontational hysteria. It cited what it called various war exercises in South Korea, the deployment of U.S. strategic assets, and its rivals' harsh rhetoric. South Korea's military said later on Wednesday that it won't tolerate any attempts by North Korea to change the status quo. It said South Korea will overwhelmingly punish North Korea if it launches provocations. A South Korean military statement said North Korea's nuclear and missile programs have threatened peace on the Korean peninsula. South Korean officials earlier said North Korea had already been adding anti-tank barriers and reinforcing roads on its side of the border since April in a likely attempt to boost its frontline security posture and prevent its soldiers and citizens from defecting to South Korea. In a report to Parliament on Tuesday, South Korea's Unification Ministry said that North Korea has been removing ties on the northern side of cross-border railways and nearby lamps and planting mines along the border. House of Representatives was dissolved at a plenary session on Wednesday afternoon, setting the stage for a lower house election that will see official campaigning kick off on Tuesday and voting on October 27. The government will officially decide on the schedule for the 50th lower house election at an extraordinary cabinet meeting later in the day. Former death row inmate Iwao Hakamata's acquittal over the murder of 4 people in 1966 was finalized on Wednesday as the Shizuoka District Public Prosecutor's Office abandoned the right to appeal the district court's ruling. The prosecutors said on Tuesday that they would not appeal and had until Thursday to do so. The district court acquitted 88-year-old Hakamata on September 26 in a retrial that began in October last year. Hakamata's filed a second request for a retrial in 2008. He was released in 2014 after the Shizuoka District Court decided to grant his request, and the Tokyo High Court upheld the decision for a retrial in March last year. Takayoshi Suda, the chief of the Shizuoka Prefectural Police Headquarters, apologized on Wednesday, saying, "I am sorry that Hakamata has been in a legal unstable situation for so long," Suda told reporters on Wednesday. Suda added that he intends to apologize directly to Hakamata. He says, "I would like to discuss with him and the related people on how to convey an apology." In the acquittal ruling, the district court strongly criticized investigators, saying that 3 pieces of evidence, including a cloth that was said to have been worn at the time the crime was committed, were fabricated. In 1966, the bodies of 4 family members were found at a missile company executive's residence in the city of Shimizu, now Shimizu Ward. In worker of the missile company was arrested and indicted in 1966, and his death sentence was finalized in 1980. India's ruling party is projected to have lost 2 key provincial elections to the main opposition Congress party and its allies. Exit polls showed, suggesting another setback after the party fared poorly in national elections. Local media reported that Congress had a clear advantage in exit polls in the northern state of Haryana, indicating an end to a decade of rule by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party in the state. The opposition also held an edge in the Himalayan territory of Jammu and Kashmir. India's ruling party is projected to have lost 2 key provincial elections to the main opposition Congress party and its allies. Exit polls showed, suggesting another setback after the party fared poorly in national elections. Local media reported that Congress had a clear advantage in exit polls in the northern state of Haryana, indicating an end to a decade of rule by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The opposition also held an edge in the Himalayan territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Its status as a special semi-autonomous entity was revoked in 2019 by Modi's government, which says the move has helped to restore normalcy in the area and boosted development. Hungary is putting European security at risk. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Wednesday in an unusual blunt speech blasting Budapest's relationship with Russia and China. Speaking at a debate with nationalist Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, von der Leyen took aim at Budapest's reluctance to join EU partners in helping Ukraine against Russia's invasion and its decision strengthening ties with Moscow and Beijing. Orban, who has been in power since 2010 and whose country currently holds the EU's 6-month rotating presidency, has repeatedly clashed with European institutions over concerns that he has undermined democratic norms in Hungary and pursued close relationships with Russia and China outside EU policy. In July, Orban stoked controversy when he traveled on what the Hungarian government has described as a peace mission to Moscow and Beijing during Hungary's presidency without coordinating with its EU partners. Von der Leyen criticized the Hungarian program easing visa restrictions for Russians and Belarusians and an agreement between Budapest and Beijing allowing Chinese police officers to patrol in Hungary together with their Hungarian counterparts. She also pointed to Hungary's continued reliance on Russian energy after many countries in the 27th member EU reduced their dependency in response to Russia's invasion. Russia has proven time and again it is simply not a reliable supplier. There can be no more excuses. Wherever wants European energy security first and foremost has to contribute to it, she said. A summit meeting of Ukraine's key allies in Ramstein, Germany, has been postponed after U.S. President Joe Biden cancelled a scheduled overseas trip, the organizers said on Wednesday. Biden cancelled trips to Germany and Angola on Tuesday in a blow to plans for the highest-level meeting ever of the Ramstein group of Ukraine's armed donors that aim to underscore unwavering support for Kyiv against. The October 12, 2024 event is postponed, the U.S. Public Affairs Office at Ramstein Air Base said in an email to journalists. Announcements about future Ukraine Defense Contacts Group meetings will be forthcoming. Polish President Andrzej Duda's foreign policy advisor, Ms. Polak, had earlier told newsmen that the meeting was not taking place and as such, Duda would not travel to Germany. The U.S. had yet to announce a new date. Polak said the Ramstein group had been set to convene on the sidelines of Biden's October 10 to 13 state visits to Germany, which would have been the first U.S. states visit in nearly 40 years. But the White House said Biden was postponing his trip to oversee preparations for Hurricane Milton and relief efforts after another hurricane last month killed more than 200 people. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Washington gathered like-minded nations at the U.S. Air Base in Ramstein, southwestern Germany, establishing a group of some 50 countries whose defense ministers meet regularly to match Kyiv's arms requests with pledges of donors. Saturday's meeting with the first at the level of government leaders had been scheduled to open with public remarks by Biden, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, according to a German official. Ukraine aims to organize a new peace summit by the end of this year and wants Russia to attend this time, its ambassador to Turkey said on Wednesday, but ruled out any direct bilateral talks with Moscow at the meeting. With Russia's invasion of Ukraine in its third year, the two countries remain far apart on how to end the war. Turkey, China, Brazil and others have offered to mediate in the conflict or discuss peace proposals, but no progress has been made. Ukraine is pursuing President Volodymyr Zelensky's victory plan, while Russian President Vladimir Putin has said peace talks can only begin if Kyiv agrees to abandon large swaths of territory claimed by Moscow and drops its bid to join NATO. While supporting Ukraine's territorial integrity, condemning the invasion and providing it with military support, NATO member Turkey has also opposed recent sanctions on Russia, with which it has important relations in defense, energy and tourism. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is expected to return to Ukraine's Southeast Europe summit in the Croatian city of Dubrovnik on Wednesday. A Turkish diplomatic sources said he would reiterate that Ankara's position that any peace talks must include both parties for a fair and lasting resolution. And that's the size of our package today on the international news today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. We told you that Kenya MPs votes to impeach Deputy President. We also told you that Afghan man in Oklahoma City arrested for plotting election day attack in U.S. North Korea vows to block border with South Korea. Well, we also told you that European Union Commission says Hungary's Russia-China policies poses security risks. Ramstein meeting postponed after Biden cancels trip. We also told you that Ukraine government eyes peace summit by year-end that includes Russia. Many thanks for watching. I am Victor Peter. You can follow us on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram at Atlantic Television Network. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Business news comes up next. Do stay with us.